Hello, everybody. This is Uncle Vince, and it's the brand, and the schedule is a little off this week. I usually shoot this show with my good friend Vito on Sunday night. Last night, I was feeling a little under the weather, still feeling a little under the weather, but we've got to get this show done. This will be Monday's show for Realm Network, and this will be Tuesday's show for Podcast One. This is called Getting Color. Vito, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, Vince. I'm glad you're feeling a little better. I hope everybody out there is good. The Pavarotti of part shots to the body is ready to go. And Vince, what are we talking about this week?
Well, first I want to talk about last night. It seemed like there was a big party going on. I heard some bocce ball in the background. I heard horseshoes were being thrown. What the hell was happening last night at your place?
We had our annual Labor Day bash. And it was at our friend's house, Shatter's Garage, a very famous place that I made famous. And we had about 50 to 60 people. We had horseshoes, cornhole, bocce ball. We had a lot of great picks. I actually lost at my first game of cornhole yesterday. And it was a long time coming. There's one kid, he's my friend's son, he's 20-something, up and coming, trying to make it in the world, got a new truck, got a baby, got a girl getting married next year. I'm going to officiate that wedding. He beats me the first game. I said, it's a fluke. So we played from 2 o'clock until 11 o'clock last night, and this poor kid was calling his boys, I got a partner, I got a partner. I said, bring him down, and I whipped his ass the whole time. Now, when it came to horseshoes, I'm usually pretty on, but then I was off, and I was just missing. But the cornhole, I'm his cornhole daddy. All right, he lives with the Amish. He's a Mennonite. So you know how to me. I got fresh fruits and vegetables. My wooden deck will be, redone. And then the horseshoes, I was just off. And then the bocce ball. Now, Vince, they're not Italian. They don't know. They thought they were golden eggs, these people out here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they got our frying pans. I said, no, you don't cook them. You throw them. So it was a learning experience. So everybody had a good time with it. Everybody was enjoying themselves. Party didn't end until like 1 o'clock in the morning. And it was a good time.
I got to ask you this, though, bro, because, listen, we all know horseshoes, bocce ball, bro, those are, man games. I mean, those go back to, our freaking ancestors since the beginning of time. Bro, cornhole, isn't that like not for nothing. When I see that game, isn't that kind of a Sissy Mary game, bro?
It's a very skilled game because some of the boards you play on, some of the boards are slippery, some of the bags are different sizes. And if the board is bouncy, you got to learn how to throw it with an arc so it lands and it can't skip. If it's slippery, and you got to know how to throw it just right. So if you're really good at it, it's a good game, and people come from around. It's at all the World of Beer and different places outdoors, like outdoor bars and stuff. That's the game to play. And
wow,
it's really
bro.
good.
Huh. Yeah. All right, Vito, today we're going to talk about something very interesting. You brought up a topic, but I think we're going to really get more deeply into it because that's what we do here on Getting Color. You were talking to me last week about the PWI 500 and how much that has changed due to social media. And, I think that's a great topic, and we're definitely going to talk about that because I know the PWI 500 used to be a really big deal back in the day, but I think the social media goes much, much deeper with that. And I think you have to combine social media with kind of dirt sheet marks because that's where it all began. So we're going to kind of go back to the beginning and kind of, go through the history of wrestling since Vito and I have been in the business, to kind of talk about, the impact social media, the impact of dirt sheets and the wrestling marks who write those dirt sheets and what they've added or taken away to the wrestling business. Now, Vito, I'm going to go way back because there's a lot of things about me a lot of people don't know. You may not even know this, but going back to, bro, this was like November of 1991. when I first officially got in the business, I got in the business with a guy called John Arezzi on Long Island. I know you know Arezzi. And, bro, he had a dirt sheet at that time, but he didn't have a dirt sheet. He had a radio show, but it was much like the podcast of today, but it was about the wrestling dirt because, you know, at that time, Vito, 1991, it was still very much kayfabe. There was no internet. There was no podcasting. And, you know, you would have your Meltzes and your Kellers that would give you, you know, the inner workings and behind the scenes of professional wrestling. But you either had to buy a newsletter that you subscribed to, or in John Arezzi's case, he had a radio show. And one thing I found out early on when I kind of partnered up with John was, in fact, that's what his show was, bro. It was all about the dirt and the behind the scenes of professional wrestling. And, you know, I didn't know this, you know, Vito. I didn't really know that world existed. I was never introduced to that world before. Again, we're talking about like 1991, bro. And then when I started working with Arezzi, bro, he introduced me to Meltzer. I met Dave Meltzer back in 1991. A lot of people don't know this. And Vito, if you remember, this is when that Vince McMahon steroid trial was going on.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and Vito, one thing I noticed was here I was, you know, a wrestling fan, a fan of Vince McMahon's, a fan of the business. And, bro, these guys, Meltzer, Arezzi, bro, they just wanted to hang freaking Vince McMahon out to dry. I mean, bro, they were bringing everybody and anybody on the show that had any kind of dirt regarding Vince McMahon, and it went beyond steroids, bro. That's when they were bringing disgruntled, you know, I'm going to use the word midgets because it was midget wrestling back then. Disgruntled midgets on the show. Bro, you know the stories with the referee and the ring boys and their feet and all this ridiculous stuff. Billy Graham came on the show and told a story that was absolutely not true. And it was so freaking one-sided, bro. It was a total burial of Vince McMahon. And I was like, you know, wait a minute. I see you want to chime in, Vito. Let me just finish this thought. I was like, wait a minute, bro. Where's the other side of this? What happened to innocent until proven guilty?
Well, I could tell you what. I mean, back then, I remember really like vividly that era because like at that time I was just starting and I was in the mix of all that stuff. Back in 1991, I was from Johnny Rod's school, so I kind of got the, you know, the tail end of the steroid trial. But then, like you said, John Arezzi and Meltzer were bringing on a guest, and I remember that time where they were burying Vince and they were trying to get dirt on them, and those two guys were making notoriety and making a name for themselves. Maybe they couldn't be working for Vince. They figure if you can't work for him, you might as well go against him and make a name off and get the rub. And that's really how Meltzer really got famous. And Arezzi was pretty famous himself. When it was a new concept for them to bring on all those kind of guys and bring the dirt out. Then, you know, kind of like suddenly it kind of like died out because then it went on to different things. And then I guess like once the trial ended.
Well, before we get there, Vito, before we get there, I just want to throw in one other thing so you know, because you know, bro, like Arezzi's gone on Meltzer's show and they freaking sit there and bury me. Obviously, bro, my career ended up where it ended up, and Arezzi's career ended up wherever his ended up. But bro, here was the turning point, Vito. You know, here I was listening to this one side of the story. Then, if you remember, after Vince McMahon, after he was innocent, he had this steroid symposium, and they were going to start drug testing and this and that and the other thing. And he had a big, he had a big press conference at a hotel in New York City. Okay, bro? None of these guys went to the press conference. None of these guys covered the press conference. because they all said before Vince even had the press conference, oh, it's bullshit. He's bullshitting. He's covering up. He's a liar. He's a this and that. So I said, you know what, bro? I'm going to see if I can get invited to the press conference because I want to hear the other side of this, Vito. And that's when I went to the press conference. Rizzy didn't. I heard the presentation by the WWE. I heard their freaking doctors. And I sat there and I said, Vito, I said, you know what? I don't know if this is a horse and pony show. I don't know if these guys are lying about this drug testing or not. But the only way we're going to know is if we see how this thing pans out. And because I went to that steroid symposium and none of those guys went, and because I kind of listened to the WWE side, that's where Arezzi and myself ended our relationship. But, bro, this goes all the way back to 1991 when I saw that side back then when it was just the dirt sheets.
Well, you know something? I gotta say, if you're gonna bury somebody and you're gonna go all the way, and the guy looks to make himself clean, why not go to the press conference and see for yourself? Now, as being kind of like a one-sided reporter, and you're not doing your due diligence to get all the information, well, kind of bad on those guys. I mean, they did make a name for themselves, and by not showing up there to listen, at least as dignitarians to, back up their claims. I mean, it was kind of wrong of them. But, people make a lifetime of just sitting on the outside and they judge. And when they think that their opinion is gold, how do you know what goes on unless you're there? How do you know how to live that life unless you do it? And a lot of people seem to think that that's the way to do it, just have an opinion about something you never did. It's just like the smarks, as you call it. The guys you do the better. They think wrestling's a joke. They think it's easy. They think, this is bad, that's bad. Yeah. Do you know how hard it is to be a pro? Do you know how much time it takes, how much training? And when you don't know what you're talking about, that's what makes the difference between being good and being bad.
Well, you know what, Vito? Just like in 1991, they chose not to go to that stereo symposium. And I know Meltzer was invited for a fact. And he basically said, I'm not flying from California to New York for a horse and pony show because it's going to be bullshit. I know that for a fact. Vito, fast forward that 26 years later, the situation comes down between myself and Jim Cornette where I have to file an order of protection. Nobody knows what the truth is. Nobody knows anything. Yet the same Dave Meltzer reporting his side of the story, bro, not one single person called me. Not one. Vince, why did you do this? That Cornette's been dogging you for 18 years. Why did you? Not one person. So whether it's 1991, bro, or whether it's 2017, it's still the same premise. They have an agenda. They want to get their point of view across. Anything that's counterproductive to that point of view, they're not going to go down that avenue because it's going to shoot their story down. So this is a practice that's been going on for 25 years. Now, Vito, here's another thing people don't know. Very interesting. You probably don't even know this. Next step, Vito, I get hired by the WWE. And, I get my full-time job as the editor of the paper, and I'm in the office. And the next time dirt sheets come into play is, bro, Howard Finkel's job was to basically read the dirt sheets. Primarily at that time, I think it was just Meltzer and Keller, and write down all the bullet points and all the news from the dirt sheets. And then, CC it out to the main people, back then at Titan Sports. But I got to tell you something, Vito. I'll be honest with you. A lot of times we used to read this news and freaking laugh at it like it was a joke. We used to be working there. They used to be talking about what was going on, and none of it was ever going on, ever. But I think, bro, they gave that job to Fink as a rib. I mean, literally just to give Howard Finkel something to do, that he had to sit there every day and read these sheets and hear these reports, because at the end of the day, bro, the news we were getting was absolute BS.
Well, I tell you what, when you're going to report news, you have to get something relevant. Vince McMahon at the time was very relevant. When they go back and you look at Vince Russo and they mention you and they bury you and they do all these things, you are relevant. So Vince McMahon, Vince Russo on top of the game, on top of the mountain. And the only way for people to get relevance is to knock the top dog. Whether you're a good top dog or a bad one, you're the newsman. You're the newsworthy story of the day. And that's where I think, like, these people, they make their fame off of, defrauding people of their character, taking advantage of people, when you don't know. But Howard Finkel was a good employee and a good announcer. They might have gave it to him as a rib, that job. Who knows? No, but we and you don't know that. But that same information that they're getting, they got from Howard Finkel back then, somebody is giving to them today, because that practice still is preached. And just like I do, there's somebody out there listening to this podcast. They're waiting for us to say something negative. This is not a negativity show. This is not a positive show. This is our opinion and the truth on what we know about professional wrestling.
And Vito, let me tell you this, because I want to make sense of this to everybody listening so they understand my feelings, towards the dirt sheet. Because let's face it, bro, I got an entire show dedicated to these bozos called, castrating the marks. But Vito, like a lot of people say to me, because I say a lot of times, bro, if you're never in the wrestling business, if you weren't in a locker room, if you weren't face to face with wrestlers, interacting with wrestlers on that level, you don't know what the frig you're talking about. And people will point out to me all the time, Vito, well, Vince, you're a big baseball fan. What about the guys in baseball? What about Peter Gammons? What about Mike Lupica? What about people like that? And I try to explain to these people, Mike Lupica, Peter Gammon, they have access to the locker room. They talk to the freaking players. It's their beat. It's their job. They have a relationship with the front office. The reason the Meltzes and the Arizzis and the Kellers and people like that never had access to WWE wrestlers over decades is because, bro, WWE would read their dirt sheets and it was bullshit. There was no credibility. Who were the sources? Where did they get this story from? A lot of it was freaking nonsense. So that's why the WWE wrote them off as not being credible. And no, we're not going to give you access to our locker room. We're not going to give you access to our talent because you're not freaking journalists and you're reporting news. God knows where you're getting this from, but that's the reason we're not going to do business with you. To this day, bro, they don't have access to the locker rooms of the big companies, so you can't compare them to a Lupica or a Peter Gammons or a Matt Resurgent, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Doesn't that make sense?
Makes sense. We're forgetting one important guy. He used to write for the Daily News. He used to write the article that used to bury wrestling all the time. What was it? He was
the
a Jewish man.
The Slammer.
There you go. And
Wenicky.
He was notorious.
Hank Wenicky, bro, the Slammer.
He used to bury wrestling, and he used to say all these horrible things about wrestling, and he used to come out and bash them. And he, I think, was before the Meltzers and the Arizzis, because he used to do it in the 80s. And it went all the way through. And I mean, that was a great article to read because you wanted to see what he was going to talk about. And then, you talk about somebody who didn't have an insight or didn't have an in. There's a guy who just didn't like wrestling, or he used to just write about some nonsense.
Vito, do you know, bro, I can't believe we're having this conversation. And I'm not saying this to bury the guy because he's a dear, dear good friend of mine. You're talking about, bro, and this guy, Hank Wenicky, the Slammer, gave away the finish to WrestleMania 10, bro. That was my first pay-per-view as a WWE employee. He gave away the finish to the pay-per-view, and the WWE had to alter it because this was the Daily News. This wasn't some, Wrestling Observer. Bro, you know who used to give Hank Wenicky all that wrestling news, because Hank Wenicky was a writer for the Daily News. He knew nothing about wrestling, wasn't a wrestling fan. Bro, you know who used to give him all that dirt?
Who was the man?
And you know him very, very, very well, bro.
I can't imagine who you're going to tell me.
Blackjack Brown.
Blackjack Brown.
Yeah.
I used to love him. Yeah.
Yes.
I was good friends with him. He was a good dude.
He was the one that gave Wenicky all the information for the Daily News, bro. Blackjack Brown. But
Blackjack.
you know what the difference was between Blackjack and these other guys, bro? Arezzi, Keller, Meltzer. They're malicious. Like they want to end careers. They want to make a name for themselves by burying other people. That wasn't Blackjack's ammo. Not at all, bro. The guy was a gentleman. He was a nice guy. He was innocent. He was just a big wrestling fan.
Do you know that he used to give me such good press, a Skull Von Crush on the Indies, and I used to talk to him all the time, had his phone number. We used to have conversations, met him a few times. Nice gentleman, good guy. I mean, there are some guys who are good, some guys who are bad, some guys who will play ball with you, but then there's those guys that sit there on top of the mountain thinking their opinion is gold, and you got to look at them and say, I don't know, I think you're mistaken sometimes.
Yeah. All right, Vito, before we go on, we still got a lot to talk about. Let me tell everybody about TrueCar. There's something about TrueCar a lot of people don't know, and that is that using TrueCar can also help you buy a used car. In fact, there are over 700,000 pre-owned vehicles available from TrueCar certified dealers nationwide. Now, whether you are looking to buy new or used, you can get upfront pricing information that empowers discounts off the list price for used cars and a better buying experience through their TrueCar certified dealer network. There are 3 million cars that have been sold through TrueCar, over 13,000 TrueCar dealers, and you will save an average of $3,000 off the MSRP. So when you're ready to buy a new or used vehicle, visit TrueCar.com to enjoy a more confident car buying experience. Some features are not available in all states. That's TrueCar. All right, Vito. Now, as I become a TV writer for the WWE, and I'm still reading these dirt sheets. And, bro, here's the difference. Now we're going to start picking this apart a little. Bro, I will never forget, and I dare anybody to go back in archives. When we did the, Rock, This Is Your Life with The Rock and Mick Foley, okay, bro, that segment did an 8.4 rating. 8.4. Okay, bro, the average rating today isn't even 3. 3 times the amount of what the show does today. The highest rated segment in the history of professional wrestling. Meltzer in the next dirt sheet, bro, ripped it to shreds and made the statement. Whenever that was, bro, 97, 20 years ago, I will never watch another WWE show again because that was freaking horrible. An 8.4 rating. Now, again, bro, we would laugh at the dirt sheets back in that day. And, bro, we knew then, Vito, if we did something they ripped or if we did something they hate or buried, that it was going to be huge because the casual fans were going to love it. Because these guys are the exact opposite of the casual fan. If they like it, like Japanese wrestling, the casual fans could care less about it. If it's entertaining and sexy and beautiful women and funny, they're going to bash it, and the casual fan is going to love it. So in my experience in writing for the WWE, we would get their comments and literally paid zero attention, bro, to anything the dirt sheets would say at that time. Now, bro, let's kind of make the transition, which is comical to me, Vito, and you will love this. You will love this.
Yeah.
I go to WCW. Again, a lot of people don't understand. Say whatever you want at WCW. That was a living hell for me for 2 years. I only actually actively worked for ECW for 9 months. So I had my own problems. I had my own issues. I had for 2 years, bro, when I was at WCW, I didn't have a clue to what dirt sheets were saying. Now, Vito, you're gonna appreciate this. I go to TNA. And Dixie Carter is the president of TNA, Vito. Vito,
Right.
she knows nothing about wrestling. And she was so intimidated by Jeff Jarrett for good reason, bro. Jarrett used to talk down to her. Jarrett used to make her feel stupid. I think that was Jeff's way of telling her, okay, you have the money, but we're going to be equal partners because you need me because you don't know anything about this business. And Jeff used to treat her like a dog sometimes. I'll be honest with you. Me and Dutch used to tell him all the time, bro, give her a freaking break, man. Like she is the money and she is the boss. At least show a little respect. But my point is, Vito, she used to feel so intimidated by Jeff and so unknowledgeable that when we would write the show and then she would give us her feedback, it was word for word, verbatim, Wade Keller. And then we literally found out, bro, she had a relationship with Wade Keller where she would literally talk to him on the phone on a weekly basis, and he would bury and critique our show to Dixie. And she would come to us, bro, with this opinion that we just read that in his dirt sheet. Word for word, verbatim, we just freaking read that. And literally, bro, Dixie Carter now 100% let the dirt sheets for the first time, to my knowledge, have an impact on her company and the product.
She was better off a fan and should have kept buying a ticket. Money, just because you own a company, people, doesn't mean you have the know-how to run it. And some people just deserve just to sit in the background. If you're going to be an owner of something and be an investor and let the brains, I mean, Jeff Jarrett, for whatever everybody thinks or what everybody says about Jeff, he grew up in the wrestling business. He knows the wrestling business. Some of his ideas are good. Some of his ideas are bad. He comes with Dutch Mantel. He has a whole another 30 years experience. Them guys know the wrestling business, what used to work and what doesn't work. And when you got somebody like those two guys and they're going to talk down to, and I can understand why, because they're not in the wrestling business. They're not one of the boys. They're not one of the people. They're not one of the carnies. They're not one of us, you know? And I say us in meaning the boys and like in general, the people who are in wrestling, who grew up in it or who lived it, who did it. And a person like Dixie Carter doesn't know any better. And it goes for everybody out there who decides they're going to be a writer and they can write better than Vince Russo. They can write better than Michael Hayes. They can write better than Stephanie McMahon. Everybody thinks they could do it in such an easy job, but there's so much that goes into writing and doing a show and timing and times and dialogue and storyline and everything. Everybody says, oh, we can write this storyline. We could do this. It's not that easy, people. And when you're talking about having 3 hours and you have to dissect 3 hours for 100 people, that's 100 employees, and you have to make sure everybody has time, that is not an easy job to do. And that's something that Dixie Carter probably didn't know at the time, which she didn't. That's a lot of the people who are out there sitting on the couches critiquing our business and thinking they know how to do it better than us. And those are the same people who criticize Vince McMahon, Paul Heyman, Vince Russo, Eric Bischoff, Jeff Jarrett, all the guys who have been in charge, Jerry Lawler from Memphis TV, Carlos Colon. Those are all the people. They're all critiquers. But if they actually had to get in there and do it and get their hands dirty, they'd walk away and say, hey, this is too much work.
Okay, now, Vito, here's the thing. let's kind of work towards the today, and let's kind of try to break this down. And again, these are just going to be our opinions, because I play this through in my head a lot because it's interesting to me. So, bro, Dixie would really let the dirt sheets have an impact on our show, and I completely understood it, bro. She was afraid to have her own opinion. She didn't have any confidence in herself. She was afraid her opinion would be wrong. Who else could she go to? She couldn't go to anybody else in the company because they would be ratted out to us. She listened to the freaking dirt sheets. I got that. That makes sense. But Vito, fast forward to a couple of years ago, however many years ago we want to look at. I never thought in my wildest dreams that the wrestling dirt sheets and social media, a combination of the two, would have an impact on the WWE. I told you, bro, for years and years and years, we laughed at them. Now, all of a sudden, bro, you got this NXT. You got these Mark fans that are running the show. All of a sudden, they start bringing in wrestler after wrestler after wrestler that look like normal people. They're good, solid wrestlers, but they got no character. They look like your next door neighbor. There's nothing special about them. And now, all of a sudden, psychology starts going over to the car crashes and the high risk maneuvers and the type of Japanese strong style wrestling. And slowly but surely we start getting away from what brought the casual wrestling fans to the dance, what was professional wrestling, to this style of wrestling that only a niche audience is a fan of. And this is clearly dictated in the numbers, the number of people that watch wrestling today compared to the number of people that watch wrestling years ago. And bro, yeah, they're going to use social media as an excuse. There are other ways to watch wrestling. Yeah, bro, there are other ways to watch Game of Thrones too. But 16 million people watched the first episode of the last season of Game of Thrones on HBO, which you got to pay for, bro. Which you got to pay for. So people are still using television to watch TV shows. But now, bro, they've got a niche audience that likes that strong style Japanese wrestling. Wrestlers don't look like wrestlers anymore. There's high risk. People are getting hurt. I'd like to know, Vito, what's your opinion of the reason why they, after all these years, bro, they started listening to these people with the loudest voice and the smallest numbers that they never listened to before?
I'm going to tell you why, and here it goes. When you come up through the ranks like I did and you learn one thing, there's one sacred word that you never break, and that's called kayfabe. Kayfabe is not divulging the business, never giving away the secrets, never letting people know what goes on behind the scenes. Break kayfabe, you give out the game and you give out the secrets, then the mystique is gone, okay? Yeah, you're talking about, I'll give you my father, for instance. He was a big wrestling fan from Bruno and Pedro, and he used to go to the Garden. He was an Italian guy. He was very proud, and he did a lot of things, but wrestling he loved. Never in a million years did I ever think I was going to be a wrestler. As the years go on, and I told him, listen, I'm going to train to be a pro wrestler. He looked at me and he really didn't say anything. Here I am on TV. He said, how come you let those guys beat you? I says, well, they just had a better day than I did. And this is the truth. What I'm going to tell you is the truth. I never let my family in on the secrets of pro wrestling. After all these years, I still upheld kayfabe. I go to ECW. I fight Rob Van Dam. Great match at the Elks Lodge. Paul Alfonso holds the chair up. I get hit in the head. I fall. I lose. The next show at the Elks Lodge, my father looks at the match. He says, come over here. He says, how did you lose that match? Didn't I teach you how to fight? I said, well, it's just one of those things. He says, I'm ashamed of you. Okay. He comes to the ECW show at the Elks Lodge, goes up to Rob Van Dam and Bill Alfonso, says, come with me. I'm like, oh God, no. No, please, this can't happen. Goes up to Rob and says, my son can kick your ass. I'm standing behind him. I'm like, so Rob Van Dam was my boy. He says, yes, sir, I know that. And he goes, if I find that manager of yours, I'm going to crack his head open. Now, this is kayfabe, okay? This is 98. We go to WCW. Lance Storm, Big Vito match, and everybody knows I had my feelings about that, and that was a creative thing. And I lost my title. I get a phone call from my father the next day. He says, are you okay? I said, I'm okay, Dad. He says, you lost your title. I says, I know, I'll get it back. He says, no, you won't. Hung up the phone. I didn't speak to me for 3 months.
Holy crap, bro.
Yeah. Now, guys, there is a story behind it, but there's a meaning. If you never let people in on the savvy of pro wrestling, the Meltzers and the Rizzies had an idea, and they like to bury things. That was an idea. And if the guys themselves tried to uphold kayfabe in that way, doing a German gimmick to the T, never speaking German, living your gimmick, doing everything, and people believed you. You're really German. No, I'm an Italian guy from Staten Island, and this is how I am, but being the German. When you don't let people know the secrets and you don't give away the story, that's what keeps them interested and keeps them watching. Once they start breaking kayfabe, and this goes from the Jeff Jarrett days and the Dutch Mantels and Lawless, in Memphis, where they used to have the best TVs that you could watch on Memphis USWA, real life stories. Jerry Lawler, Eddie Gilbert, using actual vehicles to run each other over. Whether you got hurt or you didn't. The Moondogs with the Moondog Battle Royal, they're breaking boards over your head. It was believable. They looked like wrestlers. As the years went on, you got a little thing with the internet, then the magazines, and then all the insiders. That's when the promoters started to let the fans on the shows because they used to pay them to get in the business. And once you started to let the fans in the business, that was the downfall of wrestling. Little by little, it started to dwindle to where kayfabe was no longer used. You talk about kayfabe, people, everybody knows I'm an Italian tough guy from the streets. And when it came time to wear a dress, I was an old school wrestler who had those values. I wore a dress every day, 5, 6 days a week, everywhere I went. And if Vito, why are you doing? Because I want the people to believe. And if they don't believe it, I'm not going to get over. And when you uphold kayfabe, guys, and live your gimmick and live for the moment, live for the business that you're bred in, that's how you make believers and that's how you draw ratings. The NWO, Hogan going over to the NWO. That would be worse than Bruno teaming with Ivan Koloff. When Sergeant Slaughter gave up his country to be with the Sheik. You were glued to your TV. You couldn't believe this happened. Larry Sabisco turning on Bruno. Those days are long gone. Today you have the promoters and the fans who are now the writers and the bookers for the big companies because we let them in. The mystique is gone. The game is gone. Kayfabe is gone. It's no longer there. People complain about the ratings because there's nothing left for your imagination. Like Vince said before, they let different guys of walk of life come in. They're very good wrestlers, but they don't look the part. And if you don't have that look of a typhoon, of an earthquake, a big boss man, Akeem, the one-man gang, Sid, those guys looked like wrestlers. They acted like wrestlers. They felt like wrestlers. And that's what kept your attention. Today's product is so watered down with social media and being the entertainment business of today that they think it's a movie. That's how they're portraying it because of ratings and money and all this kind of stuff. But let me tell you, those guys back in the day, they made good money. And they made it. Why? Because you believed in kayfabe, and kayfabe is gone. The Samoans, Alpha the Wild Samoan. I remember him and Alpha and Sika eating raw chicken. The Moondogs filing their teeth with a file. these guys were legit. Dr. D. David Shaw slapping that reporter in the teeth because he's got, is wrestling fake? Here, taste one of these. Do you want the other one too? My father, God bless him, he's not here, but that man never knew a damn thing about the secrets of wrestling till the day he died. And he always believed.
Vito, I'm going to ask you a very important question now. Okay. But like you said, bro, yeah, we let the marks in. And there's a difference between the marks and there's a difference between, actually being in the business. And in my opinion, the marks expose the business because they want to get over with the other marks. We're insiders. We know this, we know that. But at the end of the day, when you talk about kayfabe and when you talk about protecting the business, what you're talking about, Vito, is a disrespect. That is a disrespect. Bro, there is stuff that goes on in pro team locker rooms that we never hear about. Let's face it, bro. Like when baseball is 162 games out of the year, I promise you there are fights and arguments in the locker room that we never even freaking hear about. Why? Because the players respect the game. The fans don't respect the game. They want to get themselves over with their knowledge and who they know. And I made fun the other day of Alvarez talking about going drinking with Samoa Joe. That's how they get over. So there's no respect. But here's the question I want to ask you, bro. We're talking about the dirt sheets. We're talking about killing kayfabe. We're talking about you walking around in a dress, wanting to carry on the tradition of kayfabe. Vito, I want to talk about the rats on the inside. And this is getting color. These are the things nobody talks about. Now, bro, I know who some of them are. I'm not going to sit here and name names because then I'd be just like them. I'm not going to do that. But Vito, here's my question. You're one of the boys, bro. You're one of the boys who really believed in the honor and the tradition of professional wrestling. Bro, what goes through the mind of the guy sitting next to you in the locker room that is going to the Meltzes of the world with the dirt and what's going on in that locker room, with the card on the next pay-per-view, with who's banging who? What's going through that person's mind when that person is in the same exact business that you're in, but yet here you are, bro, in 2017, still trying to uphold the traditions of the business, where this guy's spilling the beans to somebody that never spent a day in the business so they could go out and report on that. What's going through that person's mind?
That person thinks he's making friends in the business and thinks he's going to get a job in high places. It's called politicking. Politicking 101. When you can have a piece of information that an outsider wants and you give him the little bit of juice that he wants, a little bit of taste, now you got friends. And then those friends tell the other friend, hey, listen, talk to so-and-so because he's got the inside scoop. So one by one, you started telling one guy, and that's one. One guy tells 10. Now you have 10 new friends. And you're very popular. But to the guy like myself sitting next to you, and you're giving away our business that we're trying to make money at, that means that you have to be cut off, or there's like an inside locker room technique where we have to bring you back to reality, let you know what you're doing is not correct, what you're breaking the code. There's a lesson to be taught, not physical. We're not talking about beating somebody up, but there's a certain way that you let somebody know what you're doing is not honorable. It's not good for the business. It's something that's a forgotten art. It's called policing up your dressing room. If guys were to still police up the dressing rooms and police the business, maybe it wouldn't be as half bad. But nobody polices up anymore. And when you don't have the police there, everybody buries JBL. Okay, here's a great thing. Everybody buries that guy. But he was one of the policemen, along with the Taker and Bob Holly and a few other guys, And they were good for the business because they taught you the right way. There's a guy who's the same way in Puerto Rico. His name is Invader, right? Now, there's a controversy about him and Bruiser Brody. I won't get into it, but like him or hate him, he upheld the word kayfabe in that dressing room where you believe you did not take pictures in the dressing room. You did not go in the other dressing room to get your finish. It was you go out there, you learn how to wrestle, you call it in a ring, and you go do your job. And those kind of days are over, and those techniques are forgotten. Nobody polices up the wrestling business no more. And when all the veteran guys stop teaching because they see the young guys don't give a damn or they don't give that respect, that's why it happens. And that's why all these guys come in and everybody's a wrestler. Because if it went back 25 years to when you had a trainer, Johnny Rods or Iron Mike Sharps or Dr. D. David Schultz or the Samoans, I bet you more than 3/4 of the people who are wrestling today would not even step in a wrestling ring. And if they had to go to a Japanese dojo, they'd quit after day one because they would find out that wrestling is not all that easy. And it takes a special person to be in it. There you go, Vince.
Vito, you know what really bothers me? And I'm going to tell you, see, this is getting color. And, bro, I say a lot of things on this show that might not necessarily be for my own good. But, in 2017, bro, it's a whole different landscape. And like you said, kayfabe is dead and all that. Vito, you know what really freaking irks me? Here's what irks me. There are a lot of wrestling podcasts out there that do bigger numbers than me. And you know why that is, Vito? And I'm going to say this, and it's not going to make me popular. You know what freaking drives me crazy, bro? There are wrestlers and people that were in the business, a lot of them now, that have wrestling podcasts. And what do, Vito? They freaking bring these dirt sheet writers on their freaking show. Some of them even co-host the show. So what are they doing now, bro? Now they're giving them credibility. They're giving them the rub. People that have never, ever, ever, ever been in a WWE locker room are now getting the rub from people who made a career out of wrestling. And why are they doing that, Vito? For the exact same reasons why you have moles in the locker room. Because some of these guys, these marks, have big freaking sites, and they're going to put over that podcast because they're on that podcast. Me, bro, I don't care if nobody listens to these podcasts, bro. I will drop dead before I bring any of these dirt sheet writers on my freaking show and give them a rub. You know why, Vito? Because here's my question. Where are your credentials? Show me your credentials. What wrestlers have you actually spoken to? What wrestling companies have you worked for? Show me your freaking credentials. They don't have credentials, bro. They're not allowed in locker rooms. But I got to tell you, bro, these wrestlers that bring these guys on their show as journalists, to me, that's no different than the guys in the locker room talking to the dirt sheets and letting them know everything that's going on. Now, bro, my business is all about numbers. Podcast One, all they care about is numbers. That's what I should be doing, bro. I should be Meltzer should be on my show, and Wade Kelso should be on my show, so they put me over on theirs. I'll be freaking damned, bro. They have no freaking credentials. You have credentials. You spent time in the business. You're allowed in locker rooms. Then you come on my show and we'll talk about it. And you know what, Vito? That has hurt me. I could give a rat's ass. I could give a rat's ass because to me, unless you've been there and done that, you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Nothing, yeah. And what you just heard, people, is some old school mentality and a tradition that should be upheld. And it's not a bullshit. It's not a Vince Russo hates Keller, hates Meltzer. It's just a certain way you do business and a certain way you're brought up in a business. And Vince is upholding kayfabe on his podcast, and he wants people with credibility, and he wants people not to politic his way to the top, not to make people like him. He wants you to like him for what he does and what he presents to you, not because he's your friend or you can get him over or anything like that. Hey, listen, I've been the most opinionated guy there is out there. I'm the most truthful guy, and I said a lot of things throughout the years, and I'm always honest. And a lot of people don't like honesty. Well, you know what? Sometimes honesty is the best policy because you're going to come back to that guy who was honest to you because he's always going to say, I should have listened to you, Vito, 5 years ago because it would have taken me 5 years less to get for me to get to where I want to go. If people would listen to Vince Russo instead of knocking him and try to analyze what he's saying, Vince does make sense. He's not up here blowing up people or burying people. He's telling you the truth from experience, experience that people don't have. And you know what, Vince? I'm happy to hear you talk like that because the way you came up is the way I came up, and you're still practicing the same beliefs that I believe in. And I'm not I just started being an analyst and a journalist and somebody who's a podcaster. But learning from you and watching you, and people say, how do you know how to write a show? I used to sit next to Vince Russo. He used to teach me. How do you know how to do this? Because I used to sit next to Paul Heyman. I used to sit next to this one. And dumb Vito, this gorilla, has a mind, but I watched and learned. And that's how I got to do it. And when Vince says, oh, you wrote a show, I said, yeah, man, I used your concept. 2 interviews, go to a match, 2 interviews, commercial break, come back, 2 interviews, go to a match, because promos get guys over. And what gets guys over is how you sell yourself. It's not your wrestling as much as your promos, because as you've seen with Roman Reigns and Cena, it's your promo that gets you over, and not as much as you going over the guy, but how you get over with the fans.
Vito, talk about, because I know you wanted to talk about this, and I want to give you the floor here, because I know this was a big deal with Bill Apter. This was a big deal back in the day. And I'm talking about the PWI, Pro Wrestling Insider, Top 500. Tell us a little bit about that, what it used to be, what it represented, what it meant, and how that has changed through the years.
In the 90s, 80s, there was wrestling magazines, okay, guys? And you really didn't have access to the writers who wrote those things. You went on merit. You went on your wrestling career, on your credentials. In the 90s, it became a lot popular, and we came out with the PWI 500. There wasn't nobody you can call. There wasn't nobody to ask. There wasn't nobody you can beg. You earned it. You earned your way on that list. And earning it is just like earning a Ribera jacket, and going to Japan and going to Ribera Steakhouse. And when you earned those credentials back then and you earned your rating amongst the best in the world, that was something you had pride in. That's something that you took to heart. That was something you said, hey, that guy said I'm good. I appreciate it. I will use Bret Hart. How many times have he ranked number one? Mizawa ranked number one. I never was ranked in the top 10 or the top 50. My best was in the top 100. I was very proud of that because I earned it. I wasn't this politicking guy. I was a hard-working wrestler who wanted to be the best. There were a lot of guys out there who wanted the same aspirations as me, and they wanted to be the best. They moved up the rankings because they earned it. As the years went on, the magazines started to become extinct. And then, like the wrestling business and the podcast, the fans who were the marks, who came in the business, who started to run the show on the inside, or the guys who used to give the information to these guys. Hey, listen, if I give you this bit of information, can you rank me in the PWI Top 500? Now, today, sadly, it's you send your stuff in. You might know somebody who's on the committee, and you get in. Waste of time, and people who believe it and boast about it. Guys, it's not the same anymore. I just spoke to Bill Apter yesterday. He still gets blamed for the PWI Top 500. He says, Vito, you believe they're still blaming me? And that Bill Apter was a man who knew a young Skull Von Crush. And I used to say, hey, Bill, how you doing? Used to talk to me all the time. Used to get me in the magazine, not because I begged him, but because he saw potential in it, and he put me in those magazines. A lot of guys put me in magazines because I earned it. And that's what, and I still have today those. I got over 1,000 magazines that I kept through the years, and I'm in all of them. And I always honored them because I earned it. Guys, those days are long gone. Those days are over. Just like the wrestling business, just like the upholding the code, just like kayfabe, just like everything else. And when you still blame Bill Apter for the PWI top 500, fellas, he doesn't write it no more. He's not even involved in it. And he said, I'm still getting blamed. Out of touch with reality, people. Get with the times. It's a whole different beast.
Bro, I blame Bill Apter for everything that's wrong with the world. I mean, quite frankly. So, you know, I mean, I don't want to hear Bill Apter's song of woe. He's responsible, bro, for everything that's wrong with the world. In my opinion, bro.
I'm telling you, I'm going to wind up on one of his podcasts, and he's going to ask me, hey, what do you think of Vince Russo? I'm going to say, you know something, Bill? He's what's wrong with the world today, and he should be exonerated from wrestling.
All right, Vito, we could talk about this all day long. And you know what? There are a couple of other things that might bleed into our next show. A couple of other things that I do want to talk about, bro, because I really have some theories about NXT, about Triple H's positioning in NXT, about the relationship between Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, and Vince McMahon, having worked with all three. There's a lot of things to talk about, and we're going to get into all these things. But I think we discussed enough for today, bro. Let people think about what we said. Vito, give them. I know you're doing a lot. I know you just cut a video that I watched from the restaurant the other day. Let everybody know what's happening in your social media world.
All right, social media. Well, for starters, I finally put up some of my memorabilia on eBay. It is a Nitro Grill jacket. It is an original one that I have had sitting for almost 17 years in my closet. I decided to part with it. I really don't, I have never sold any of my memorabilia before, but I'm going to start getting rid of some stuff. The jacket's on eBay. If you'd like to make a bid on it and would like to buy it, you're more than welcome to it. It's definitely a collector's item. I only wore it one time. It's from the Nitro Grill. And let's go through the social media. We got Pro Wrestling Tees at prowrestlingtees.com/the Big Vito brand. We have 3 shirts up. I know the sale is still there. You get a couple bucks off, and some of the money goes to charity. We have Twitter at the Big Vito brand. Come on there and follow Big Vito LaGrasso. We have Big Vito brand on Facebook. Okay. We also have my podcast, which I'm doing live remote podcasts with Wrestling with Reality. And that's Life After Wrestling, people. And I've been going and doing some live podcasts. I'm also helping the World of Beer. This Thursday, I'm doing an autograph signing to help raise money for Hurricane Harvey and all the people in Houston. All the proceeds will go out to them. If you go to my YouTube channel, it's at the Big Vito brand. Subscribe. It's free. There's some good stuff up there. And, little by little, I have a lot of different interventions and a lot of different shows on the plate that I'm going to be posting about. So if you go to the brand, the Big Vito brand, and subscribe to YouTube, you'll be able to catch a lot of my latest shows. And I'm never somebody who doesn't want ever to be critiqued. I always ask Vince and people, what do you think? I don't want to hear how good it is. I want to hear what I can improve on, because I always look to get better. And that's the whole spiel for me this week, Vince. I know I started out with nothing, and now I got a lot of stuff.
Well, what about your Twitter handle, though, bro? I don't think you gave it.
Twitter handles at the Big Vito brand. Follow me on Twitter. Follow Vince Russo Podcast 1. If you guys catch me on there, I'm saying good morning to DDP, The Rock, Hogan, Vince Russo Podcast 1. The Real Network, Jeff Lane. I say good morning and spread positivity. Positivity is what I'm about. If you have positive vibes, you're going to have a positive life, and that's the way the world should be. If you deal in the past and all the negatives, you're never going to move forward, people.
All right, Big Vito, again, thanks for joining us, brother. I'm going to let you go so I could take care of some housekeeping. You don't need to stay on the show for. But listen, bro, I appreciate you. I will see you this time next week, bro.
Have a good day, people. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Ciao for now.
All right, everybody. They
Bye-bye.
have the great Big Vito, WWE, WCW, TNA, Japan, Puerto Rico. I can go on and on and on. He's doing a lot now in social media. He's one of the good guys. I encourage you, please follow Big Vito and the Big Vito brand. Let me tell you about the new Podcast One app. You can find out everything about your favorite shows, get more content for my show. You can find articles, social media episodes, make playlists. It's easy to comment and connect with other fans of the brand. We have our own little community right on there. Share your favorite content, see behind the scenes photo, get 360 video or a bunch of shows in virtual reality. There's over 1,000 videos on there right now. It's like you're in your own little in-home studio. There is no other podcast app like this right now. Download the all-new Podcast One app now in the App Store or on Google Play. And also, too, you guys listening on Podcast One, remember you can see our show, the video on the Realm Network, the day before it airs on Podcast One. You'll also see a lot of content that doesn't air on Podcast One at all. If you go to the Realm Network, RELM network.com, or Vince Russo's brand.com, it's only $2.95 a month, but that really helps support us. It really helps pay some of our bills. That's 75 cents a week, 15 cents a show. Please check us out, bro. That really helps us. Also, check out our sponsors, Collar and Elbow brand, Celebrity Video Messages that advertise with us. TrueCar, of course, supporting our sponsors is just as good as supporting us. Well, I will be back tomorrow. We will have the Raw review, the SmackDown review, a lot going on this week. I think tomorrow's show is That's Life. There's a lot I want to talk about tomorrow. It's just going to be me going solo. But again, everybody, thanks for your support. See you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.